Wagner to give his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and greetings from South Africa. I'm sitting right now at the very southern part of South Africa, and hope you can hear me loud and clear. Please confirm that you hear me.
Yes, you're very well audible.
Yes. We are here.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'd like to share a little bit the vision about strategic project portfolio management, which is beyond project management, but it's dedicated to implement a strategy of an organization, but it can even be used for public administration or a country. So let me just delve into portfolio management. And I was introduced by Dr. Pillai, thank you. I'm a academic, as I say, so I'm working with German industry on portfolio management, on program and project management, and also German government. But I'm also working as an academic on these topics now in various countries. My research topic is especially the projectification. And projectification means that we see more and more projects all over in our society. It's not only in industry, but predominantly in industry, but also in public administration, we see more and more projects, but also in social life, in community services, in arts and sports and crafts, and so many sectors of our society. The number and importance of projects is really thriving. And the reasons for that, and this is a study I did in Germany 2 years back, is because digitalization is driving projects, but also the need for innovation is driving the need for projects. In our German industry, efficiency pressures drives projects. So this is why we focus on how to do projects faster with less budget, less resources, etc. But also societal challenges, as you have heard now in these last presentations, to cope with climate change, with the disasters that we see now in our society. So projects are not just only for industry purposes, but it's for the betterment of our society. And industry in Germany, at least, is far ahead in sense of projectification. In our country, public administration needs to learn how to manage projects, programs, and portfolios. And especially also in the social sector, we need to spread word about projects and project management much more than we did in the past. So that's projectification, which is also in your country, in India, spreading. I'm pretty much sure. I'm not sure about the numbers. So what we found that more than 1/3 of the time, all people on average spend on projects. And that number is growing. So everyone in our society is working in various roles on projects. But there are certainly some bottlenecks. We have bottlenecks in the projects, like the project constraints. Now in our business companies, we have liquidity problems, budget restrictions. So we could do many more projects if we have enough budget, but that's paradise. And we are not in paradise times. So we need to cope with these bottlenecks. Could also be supplier constrictions, or what we have in Germany, personnel shortages. So we in Germany lack qualified personnel for certain jobs or tasks. That's very different in South Africa. That's maybe also different in your country. But independent of the bottlenecks, we need to manage the bottlenecks. And this is why we have portfolio management. Because basically project portfolio management is managing the shortages, managing the bottlenecks, maybe budget restrictions or knowledge gaps that you have, or liquidity problems. So that's the key task. It is not about efficiency, but it is really about a different task. And now if you look into an organization, whether it's public or private or whatever, I like always this ISO picture or depiction of how everything is working together. Because we do not stand alone projects. projects are embedded. First, you have a strategy, you have a strategic ambition or intent driven by the opportunities that you see in your markets or the needs that you have in your society. You translate that into business cases or requirements lists, etc., which is the foundation for a portfolio of projects and programs. You implement all that stuff in projects and programs. So the implementation, the execution is about projects and programs. And that helps you to do the operations, production, or whatever is operations, or in IT sector, it's just running the systems and harvest the benefits of all that. So see, this is a full loop. And this is why we need to embed project management much more in our management system of the whole organization. So it's nowadays not much about management of projects, but it's management by projects, which means we run the whole organization, the whole country, the whole sector or industry by projects. And as you know, these are the definitions. I'm not reading them, but you are very sure that a project is implementation to achieve an objective or a deliverable. So you deliver something through a project. Program is also bundling projects and delivering something which is more strategic, but programs are done to realize benefits. And project portfolio is a collection of all this to facilitate their management to meet strategic objectives. So that's the definitions that at least ISO standards provide. And this is the question, why do we need project portfolio management? And then we'll come back also with my last slide to that. And also the last version of the ISO standard provides guidance on that, because it says project portfolio management enables the investment and aligns it with the organizational strategy and maximizes all the benefits that you could harvest from projects and programs and so on in this pipeline of projects from left to right to the maximum extent, okay? But it also helps you, that's more the internal perspective of projects, that you optimize your organizational capabilities. You train people, you develop certain, let's say, competences, organizational competences, let's say innovation capacities or sustainability capacities and so on. That's also the task, the job of project portfolio management. And at the end, you share it with all the stakeholders. You make it visible, you make it transparent, all the status of the projects and programs. And the stakeholders may be the government, maybe the financial institutions or sponsors, but it's certainly also the beneficiaries of your projects in social projects and community projects. They also want to know, what are you doing with the scarce resources, maybe money or human resources, etc. So how do you maximize the benefits in that portfolio? So it's very important that the focus of project portfolio management is more on the strategic level. And this is why I always say, and it's a famous quote from Peter Drucker, which was an Austrian, doing the right projects, that's the matter of project portfolio management, and doing them right, that's the job of project management, okay? But it's always a combination. It's not independent from each other. So the first thing is that you select the right projects, that you optimize your portfolio, optimize it in the sense of strategy and economic benefits, etc., etc. Also, it needs to fit to the resources that you have available. Remember the keyword bottlenecks. And then you need to ensure that the project and program delivery is as efficient as possible. And here you also see the two words of effectiveness, that's more project portfolio management, and efficiency differentiate. So doing the right project is more about effectiveness, so that you get the best benefit for the buck or the dollar or the rupee. But the project management or project manager's job is to do it most efficient, to set it into a delivery mode. And I'm not now talking about project management, but in time, in budget, to scope, to specification, etc., etc. So it's two different things, but interconnected. And this is why it's very important now to understand, if you want to implement your vision from a national perspective, you need to start thinking in project portfolio management terms, and then translate all your ambitions into projects and deliver them efficiently. And so now, what is project portfolio management? It's basically managing the flow of all your projects. First, you need to ensure that you have enough candidates on the very left here in this picture, in the funnel model, because you need to have candidates, proposals, ideas, enough to feed into that. But please don't start them immediately. And that's one of the big mistakes many organizations do. They just immediately start working on projects or candidates, but they do not ensure that they are transparently, based on clear criteria, are selected, and that resources, scarce resources, are deployed to that project, and that they are prioritized according to your strategic ambitions and so on, and then you can start projects. So we are very fast in starting and working on projects, and somewhere we are stuck in the middle of projects, and then we need to go back to the start of it. The project portfolio management needs to ensure a transparent selection, a transparent prioritization of projects and programs before they actually can be started. And I'll show you also some tools and ways to do that. But it's very important that this is based on criteria. And the criteria are typically strategic criteria, risk criteria, whatever. That's also something you need to develop. And then throughout the execution of the projects and programs, you need to always ensure that they are continuously aligned with your strategy, because there may happen a change to the strategy, a change to the project scope, etc. And if you do not ensure on a continuously basis that they are still aligned with your strategy, then all the portfolio gets out of your hands. So project portfolio management is not just done if you do the selection and prioritization. It is a continuously, a permanent job to do, maybe on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, etc. And then at the end of projects and programs, you need to ensure that also the benefits are actually realized. Sometimes benefits are not only realized in the project's life cycle, but beyond the life cycle. And that's also a job of project portfolio management, to ensure that you still, at or after the end of the project, realize your benefits or the intent. Now, what is project portfolio management? It's a permanent process. It's embedded in all your processes, in the whole process house. So on top of portfolio management, ensure the strategy development, the strategy processes that you have, and I will show it on the next slide, how the collaboration between those two levels is done. But sure, it's kind of in a sandwich between strategy and the projects, because here in the middle, you see the project processes. So if strategy says, okay, we want to have renewable energy pushed this year, then you need to select and prioritize projects. And that is the job of project portfolio planning. Okay, and then you need to tell the projects, okay, now you're allowed to start. And so this collaboration is also a very interesting one. And project portfolio management processes needs to be aligned with the budgeting processes, needs to be aligned with the risk management processes. Certainly, it's a matter of resource management, knowledge management, document management, and other centralized processes. I'm not going into all of those, but I just want to show that the two layers that are key for project portfolio management. And the one is certainly between the strategy level, because now it's the job of senior executive, top officials of your government, because they need to set the scene for project portfolio management. They need to tell what is the corporate and project governance like, compliance issues. They need to set the vision, the mission, the strategic objectives. Portfolio management should be involved in that process, but it's the mandate of the top management, of the top executive, to set, let's say, the framework for all the project world. They may also see or set strategic scenarios and roadmaps. If you work in technology, for example, like I work in R&D, then you have innovation roadmaps, technology roadmaps, or strategic scenarios where you say, okay, the next 5 years we'd like to push more solar, and then the 5 years after more into nuclear, whatever. And this is all input for project portfolio management. Because how would you select projects if you don't have the strategic guidance, if you don't have strategic prioritization criteria? And those are derived from your strategic priorities, from your strategic objectives, from your strategic plans and budgets, etc. That's the input for project portfolio management, right? But also project portfolio management needs to give an input to strategy. Means planning the project portfolio. The project portfolio manager needs to inform top executives or the board about portfolio scenarios. When are we able to implement certain projects and programs? When are we able to deliver certain benefits or stuff? We need to inform and make transparent the status reports of the whole portfolio, which is composed of all the status reports of all the ingredients of that portfolio, means project and programs. Maybe also detailed information for critical projects. And also typically you have a lot of decision-making proposals to the top executives in order to tell them, okay, what may be changes needed or escalations or new budget requests, etc., etc. So you see, it's an ongoing process. It's a permanent process. You don't do that just in January at the beginning of the year. It should be done on a monthly, a quarterly, at least a quarterly basis. And this is why we sometimes also talk about agile project portfolio management, which is not so fancy because it's just dynamically or more often, more regularly updating this process here. Then you can call it agile. But actually, that's the key interaction that you have between project portfolio management and the strategic level. And then you actually need to build your portfolio. And it is a bit shown here. I'm not going into the detail. But you first need to prepare your portfolio, maybe the predefinitions, the project ideas, etc. I show it on the next slide because it's one of the tools we typically use. It's a project portfolio Kanban board. You see it on the right, on the lower right. It's the Kanban board where you put all the projects that you have in a portfolio, maybe more than those here, but you can manage them from the left to the right. So the process runs like that you collect as a project portfolio office or a PMO, all the candidates, the ideas, the initiatives, but you need to collect information based on a standard project proposal form. So they need to fill in a certain inquiry form, a certain template, where you then can go to your board, to your portfolio group, decision body, and ask them for permission that this project is allowed to be started in the next cycle, okay? They may say yes, and if that is the case, if the project is allowed to be started, then you need to check whether the resources are available, and only if the resources are allotted to that project, then you give it a go, and then projects are in the active part. Otherwise, you need to park projects, and that sometimes needs a lot of discipline because you're very passionate about starting into projects, but if you do not have the resources, you need to park them and only allow them to start if there's enough resources available. And that's the Kanban process, because the Kanban pulls it into the active portfolio only if resources are available. Means if enough resources are available to work on those projects, because otherwise you have a lot of idle projects in your pipeline, which causes a lot of waste of time, of resources, or budget, etc., etc. And with this Kanban board, we'd like to prevent a lot of idle projects, like in the Suez Canal or in the Panama Canal, to just lay there and waiting to be worked on. So this is the process of lean or Kanban board process, just to work on the projects where the resources are available. You may see that also some projects may be postponed or cancelled even. Also, that is something which is very important, because if the project, for example, has a scope change, it needs to be decided again. Are the resources available, enough resources, the right resources, etc.? And that brings me to the left of this slide, because on the left you see you always need to compare the projects that you really want to do with the availability of the resources. And you need to prioritize the project. Maybe you have must projects, so you must do them. Maybe it's a legal obligation, or there may be nice to have projects, maybe internal projects, then they may not have the highest priority. So it's, you always need to balance the whole portfolio and so on. And this is the process we typically need to do in a project portfolio. And as I already said, it's been really done on a continuous basis. We do it typically every month, also in IPMA, by the way. We do that process every month. The executive board is looking into the projects and the progress and so on. So it should be always transparent. First, what is the status of all the projects, and what is the status of your strategy implementation? Because if you know the project status of all the projects in your portfolio, you know about the implementation status of your strategy. So this is very important, and this can be sometimes for big companies like Audi. We use, for example, this balanced scorecard approach, where you can align the strategy through a strategic balanced scorecard and all these goals and KPIs and targets to the portfolio through a program to the project level, and monitor and control and report back with the same KPIs, the same set of information back to the top level. You can use also OKRs or whatever, but it's very important to align the strategic level with your project's level, so that this is very closely aligned. One example, and I took an example of our federal government. After German reunification, German government started to have a federal transport infrastructure plan. That plan typically spans 10 years. And it has a huge volume. It's 270 billion euro. It's for all national roadways, railways, and waterways. And there's budget money, sure. It's a legal process. So it starts with a portfolio on the federal level. There's also a federal agency collecting all that candidates. And then this is translated into budgets, federal budget, which are on an annual basis decided. And then we have a very federal structure in Germany. That money goes to the federal states and the communities down to the municipalities, which then can spend and build the roads, with very small roads up to the Bundesautobahn, which is our highway levels. So, and as you can see right now, the focus, and that's our strategic focus in all this infrastructure, it is more about updating, renovating, also built on sustainability criteria. It's maintenance, removal of bottlenecks, especially in the railway system. Waterways, it's not so much money, but there's also still some money for transport and logistics and so on. And it's all coordinated. And you see here on the right, upper right, some innovation areas, which is the focus. And that helps project portfolio management now to implement the right projects, the right programs, and implement them right. But you first need to have the strategic guidance, you need to have the portfolio approach, and this is also done online. There are portfolio management tools, etc., etc. But I'm not talking about that. You will see the link on the bottom here. There's a note where you also can Google it. I was talking also on other IPMA events about this. I think that's a good example for setting a national vision and strategy into place through projects, programs, and portfolios. What to do? I think it's very important that you first assess where you are at the moment, whether it's a government agency or a private organization. You assess the actual state and determination of your target state in regards of portfolio management. Then you may implement concepts like the ISO 21504 or what we have in IPMA, the ipma organizational competence baseline. Then you implement it step by step, and then you need to also have all these governance bodies. You need to have a PMO running the portfolio management, and then you sustain the solution of portfolio management. So if you are interested in implementing project portfolio management, that could be a guidance process. Because typically when I'm consulting big organization, they just lack portfolio management knowledge. And we go from the left to the right in establishing project portfolio management, and that needs at least a year to implement. Here some key pointers. I'm not going through all that. That's what we use at Tiba, because it's not only the processes and methods, but it's also the people side, it's the organizational side, and the software. Because software is very key, and it's also a lot of AI now used. There's a bit of background noise. Maybe someone needs to mute himself. And I also want to point to the ICB, because we have a version of the ipma individual competence baseline for project portfolio managers. And you can also certify as an ipma project portfolio manager. And here you see again also the portfolio management competences, because if you go back here, you need to have the right people with this strategic mindset, with this strategic perspective that can also run a portfolio and coach and train and mentor the people now doing the projects and doing the programs. So that's very important that you also have not only the processes for project portfolio management, but also the right people on this level. And I want to end my presentation not by reading all that, but by giving you, let's say, some food for thought. Because I always get the question, what is the value proposition of having a professional project portfolio management? And always draw from that list here. I always say projects are much better aligned with the strategy and your overall organizational goals. It's more the investment thinking of running projects because you have scarce resources. But you're still organizational, more flexible and more agile. You resource and optimize the resource utilization. But you can also build future resources and see upfront what resources are needed. And it's all more transparent. And I think that's in public domain, a very important point, that you're always transparent, money for value, that you make transparent what you spend. So that's a list you can use in arguing for project portfolio management.